Hey, Tribe Builders, this is Tanya Rooney, and I am literally the most excited ever today. And I know they say that a lot, but this guy is like one of my original mentors in real estate. The first time I ever met him, I busted on him like in kind of a rude way, but I thought it was funny, and he thought it was funny, thank goodness, because then we became friends. And this dude has taught me so much about real estate. He's connected me to so many people. Like, he's literally one of my originals. If I had like a board of directors, I guess he's kind of already on it, whether he wants to be or not. I actually don't care if he doesn't want to be, because he's on it and he answers his phone. So, haha, sucker. Without further ado, Mike Simmons. Hi, how's it going?
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And if I'm on the board of directors, I am rooting for your success because I hear those guys can make bank. So I just can't wait.
That's totally cool. Actually, I've never really thought about it. I'm excited to have a board of directors someday. I'm going to have a business and I'm going to be like, yeah, it's just going to be like this chummy thing that we like get together.
Nice.
And yeah, I suppose we have to make decisions,
Yeah.
but we're just going to like fuck about.
And I am never short on wanting to give my opinion. Like some people call it advice. That's the way where it sounds wanted. And opinion is really what I give. And that's not always wanted, but you do ask for it. So that's
I
good.
do. I totally solicit your opinion because I actually do. There's only
My
a
kids
couple of people
know.
that I'll listen to, and you're one of them.
My kids know when they'll go, "Oh, Dad, I need your opinion," and I'll go, "This is my specialty. Let's go. I want to give you my opinion."
I've been waiting on the edge of my seat for you to ask
There's
that.
nothing I
Let
like
me
more
tell
than telling people
you.
what to do. I love it.
Okay, tell the people listening like why I know you, I guess, and then what kind of business you have been in, I guess, because it's changed a lot lately.
Yeah, it has. It's changed maybe more than you know, maybe. Yeah. So how do we know each other? So I'll just go back quickly. Started flipping houses in '08. Like seems like the worst time in the world to start. Turns out it was actually one of the best times. Did that for about 6 years. Switched over to wholesaling. Couldn't seem to figure out how to really make this thing work at scale. Like I don't know. I was working as hard as I could for as many hours as I could, and I couldn't seem to do any more. It was just the more work didn't equal the more money coming in or the more deals. And had a friend who was a podcaster also, lived in California, did 100 deals a year, was just killing it, like had nothing but free time. And I just didn't understand that because I was doing like a deal a month at this point. And he was doing 100 a year. And he's just like, I don't know what to do with my time. I'm driving her crazy. Like I'm just following her around the house and it's driving her nuts. And I'm like, wow. So we became friends and he started a podcast and then he started a group. And at the time, you don't even know this probably, Tanya. The group was called Fail Fast Forward.
Oh,
And
wow.
it
Nope,
was
I
like a
didn't
Facebook
know.
group. And I joined that and fail fast forward. And then at one point he's like, you know what? I'm gonna start like a mastermind, like a true in-person kind of high level, with a buy-in, a significant buy-in, right? It's gonna be a hurdle here, a barrier to entry. And he said it's just gonna be like maybe, I don't even know how many people I'll get, but maybe 15 businesses, and we'll just share information and try to grow together. But in order to get in, you have to be sort of doing deals. Like you have to be pretty active, right? Like we don't want newbies in there. And I was like, awesome, I'm in. Let's do this, right? So it was $25,000. Wrote the check. I was doing enough deals to do that, and joined. And there was like 20 companies there at first. And it was great. We sat in this room for 2 days, and it was like the jankiest, smallest room. There was no bottled water. There was no snacks. Like it was just 20 companies, and most of the companies had 2 people, right? So it was like 40 people in this room, with no food, nothing to drink, and but we were loving it because we were just like sharing what we were doing in our business, what was working. It was really, really cool. But anyways, that's the quick version. Then fast forward a few years, and this woman joins the group. And at this point in the group, I'm kind of one of the coaches, and I'm helping help people and coach people and mentor people. And we had these little breakout, sessions where, I'd be on a Zoom call with half a dozen or a dozen people or whatever it was at the time. And I am a podcaster, and I had been podcasting for a long time, and I had what they call a mic flag. If you know what a mic flag is, it's that little
Nobody
box
knows,
that goes
Mike.
around a microphone that has your like logo on it or whatever. And I'm giving out serious real estate advice. Like I am dropping gold. I'm just giving great nuggets to people. I'm helping build businesses.
Humbly,
And all of a sudden,
humbly,
humbly, that's the key.
humbly.
And out of the blue, this vicious aerial assault on me and my mic flag, which had my face on it, in addition to my podcast name, she just started ripping on me like, what? You realize you have
No,
a
no,
face?
no. I just said, is that your face on your microphone? And you're like,
No.
yeah, yeah. And then I'm like, so your face is like 2 inches from your face.
But I
And
speak
how
fluent.
you took it is not my problem.
I speak fluent sarcasm, and so I immediately saw my native language being used, and I was like, "Oh, she's ripping on me right now," and it was never on my microphone again.
It wasn't.
I
The
removed
next
it
time,
because
yep,
I was
it was
like,
gone.
"Wow,
I felt
that
so
can be."
bad because I'm like, shoot, I don't even know this guy. What if he can't take that? Like, I just assumed you must be a cool guy, but
No,
oh man,
it actually made you stand out as somebody that I really liked, because there's nothing I like more. I mean, I grew up with all brothers, so like nothing was sacred. I'm used to getting my chops busted, and so I loved it. It was great, but yes, and I think I gave that to you. Didn't I give that to you a few
yep,
years
you
later?
did. I still have it. Like it's in. I mean,
Nice.
we don't have a house right now, so it's like in a box, but it's with my office stuff specifically. It's like the best gift ever. I'm just like, oh my God, this is amazing because it just
Yeah.
holds so much awesome truth and funniness of our
Yep.
meeting.
So just to go back and be clear, so that group, fail fast forward, became seven figure flipping, and that's what you joined. It's what I joined a few years before that, and that's really how we met and got to see each other for a long time. Every 3 or 4 months we would see each other at an event or whatever in person thing. So yeah, that's how you and I got to know each other.
That's awesome. Okay, and tell me what a mastermind has done for you. Because obviously, I mean, you've been doing it for a long time. I know all the
Yep.
benefits that Seven Figure gave to me, like so many connections. But tell me like what it did for your business and how it changed your business and things like that.
Yeah, and it's important to note before I tell you all that I am severely introverted. I'm not an outgoing person. I don't naturally gravitate to crowds of people or to groups. And so I really had never been part of a group, a mastermind like that in my life. I only joined because I knew that the person running it at the time was legit doing a lot of deals in a very tough market. And I thought, a half a dozen to a dozen companies, it's fine, right? And so when I joined, like I said, I was doing like a deal a month. That was about my average. On a good month, I would do 2 deals, which isn't bad. A lot of people would go, "Hey, that would be good enough for me," right? But I couldn't get past that. Like I didn't know what I was doing wrong, and I was like, "This guy is going to be able to help me because he's just doing it." So there's a lot of people out there that say a lot of things, Tanya. I don't know if you know this or not. All being honest with you,
Or
and so
yes.
I'm also a pessimist a little bit. And so I don't believe people are doing what they say if I don't know for sure they're doing what they say. And I knew for sure. So I joined, and there happened to be another bonus guy there that I wasn't aware was going to be there, named Andy McFarland, who I consider to be my mentor. And he's legit doing, 100+ deals a year in his market in Utah. And so what it did for me in and people probably can resonate with this for sure. Sometimes in the market you're in, your local market, your local city or town or wherever you're living, sometimes doing a deal a month, you are the biggest fish in the pond. And so it's hard to find someone to help you get past that point because everyone looks to you for answers. And if you start believing that, you don't grow because you're just like, well, I don't know if I can cuss on this.
And yes, you
I'm
can.
the man, and everyone wants my opinion, so I guess I don't need to grow. But I knew I did. I wasn't satisfied, and I just couldn't figure it out. And so I needed to get outside of my bubble. Well, we joined the seven figure group, and all of a sudden, I'm in a room with people who are kind of at my level or close to it, and definitely want to be well beyond. They want to be where the leaders of this group was. That was their goal, right? And so I finally found a bunch of people that weren't satisfied bumping around, doing a deal here, maybe 2 or 3 a year. Like that's kind of the environment my hometown was. And I
Mm-hmm.
finally found people that had goals that were kind of where mine were. And it was exciting. And in fact, that first meeting, we were all so like type A, like driven that there was a contest that was created out of this group. And it's like the guy running it said, I'll send whoever gets to $1 million in gross profits. I'll send you to Hawaii for free, all expenses paid. And at the time, a deal a month, we were probably at about 200,000 a year. That was kind of our gross profit. And everyone else was sort of there, or maybe a little bit less. And we just took off. Me and my partner, we were like, well, this is it, man. Like we're both competitive, and everybody there was, and Bill was in the group, Bill Allen. And we ended up winning it, but it made us kind of, with the advice of Andy, because luckily I got on a call with Andy right off the bat, and I'm like, okay, you're like 4 or 5 years ahead of me right now. Like 4 or 5 years ago, you were at the volume and kind of the business size that I am. 4 or 5 years down the road, you are where you are. What did you do? How did you get there? What were the steps from where I am to where you are? What were the steps? And he kind of laid it out. Like I did this, and I did this, didn't work. I wouldn't do that. And I did this. And I'm like, okay, so you just told me everything you did over the past 4 years that worked, that got you to where you are organically. Shouldn't I be able to replicate that faster? Since you just told me you gave me all the, you showed me the playbook. And he goes, yeah, you should be able to do that faster. And I was like, okay, game on. So we did. We implemented everything he said. We went crazy, like working tons of hours and just like, it was totally inefficient. But we did get to $1 million. I mean, just over $1 million in gross profits that first year. We won the trip. It was awesome, but it taught me what it meant to be around a group of people that believe stuff that your local bubble can't. Like your friends and family, no clue. You're speaking alien as far as they're concerned. They don't know what it. They have no idea how to comprehend or process what you're saying. And so then you go to the next level. It's like, well, people in my community who are kind of where I am, and it's hard. Most of them aren't going to be driven, necessarily like you are. They don't have the same goals. I needed to get into an environment of high achieving people, or people who at least had high goals for themselves. They weren't happy with just being okay. They wanted to be the best. And as soon as you get around people who believe what you believe, and then you mix that with a healthy dose of have already been there, and I'll help you understand how to get where I am from where you are, like all you have to have is the desire to do it at that point. It really helps. It doesn't create itself, but all you need is someone to tell you how to do something they've already done. That's all you really need. Listen, I've coached people who I've told them what they should do. And I don't know everything, but I mean, I give them advice that I believe is really, really good. And I give it to a Zoom room full of people. And, maybe 2 or 3 of them do it and see the results. And the rest of them either don't do it, or halfway do it, or they modify what you said based off what they think is a better idea, and it doesn't work. It's like it all works. It's just you got to be the right kind of person, and it's not for everybody. But anyways, I kind of want to find a tangent. But the 7-figure group taught me basically how to think bigger, but then gave me action items to achieve bigger. Because everyone thinks big. I want to be the next whatever, but you have to have a playbook. And if you don't have a playbook, because I wanted it years before that badly, but I was trying to figure it out on my own. And one thing I figured out through all of this as an introvert, why it's important to hear this if you are sort of an introvert listening to this, is I promise you one of 2 things. Either you cannot do it on your own without any outside advice or influence, or you can, but it'll take 10 times longer than it has to, right? So I'm not saying no one's ever achieved stuff without help, but I promise you it didn't go as fast. I promise you that. And most people will fail. If it doesn't go as fast, they'll fail, right? Maybe 100% of the people would achieve it, but only a small amount of people can wait long enough for it to happen without any outside influence. Most people, if it doesn't happen quickly, they're on to the next thing, right? So.
Yeah. Okay. So some of this stuff that you were just talking about, it made me think of you kind of going back to you wrote a check for 25,000 or 20,000, whichever one you said. And you said at the time, I could do that. So I see the most amount of people stuck in that spot. And I know the value of a mastermind. There's no, if there, it's always worth it. It might not be worth it with that person or maybe that guru or whatever the hell.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
a lot of people get stuck when they see 2 or 3,000 or 5,000 or 10,000. You were just like, yep, 25K. Can you tell me a little bit about like the mindset you were in that were you desperate because you wanted to do that much more? Was it because you had already spent time in a room with those people at that point?
No, well, let me say
Or
this too. When I started real estate back in '08, if someone has
Mhm,
said, I have this group, it's $25,000, it's going to help supercharge your business. I don't care how much I believed them. It wasn't an
mhm.
option. It was off the table for me. And
Gotcha.
so I got to doing a deal a month without really having to spend a lot of money on my education. I spent time. I did all the things that most people do, but the difference in my and so there's levels to this, right? And so now maybe I would join a mastermind that's 50,000, right? Because I'm in a different place where that 50,000 feels more like 25, 10 years ago.
Mhm.
You don't have to spend, and in fact, I don't even recommend you spend money that you can't afford on a mastermind because there's plenty of options. Now, I went to a local mastermind, and in all fairness, I guess I shouldn't say I didn't spend any money. The local mastermind that I went to was $149 a month. So that's something. But it
Yeah,
was
that's
it was it was affordable to me. I could do that to get around people who had a little bit higher expectations. But then when I kind of got to where that group where I was kind of in front of the group as the example, I realized
Mhm.
I can't learn much more from this group, or at least not significantly. And by the way, another aspect of my personality is that I'm incredibly impatient. And so I'm not the kind of
This
person
is
who
so
can
true.
who because what I hear in the back of my mind is somebody would probably think when I said I can't learn anymore from this group, they'd go, well, yes, you can. You can always learn from people. And I get that as a general statement, but I needed to learn a lot and I needed to learn it fast in my mind. And so then I went up to the next group. But the other aspect of high achievers that I see, it's not 100%, nothing's 100%. Okay. I'll just say that blanket statement for the whole podcast. Nothing I say is black and white. But what I find to be most common in high achievers is that they take massive action. And so even if I give you all the answers, if you don't act on that in a kind of with a sense of urgency, you may not see the success you want to see. I think I've used this example. It's kind of clunky, but I think starting off in any business or really any endeavor, and we'll just say real estate since that's what we're talking about, it's kind of like a big fat goose getting off the ground. Like that goose has to flap its wings way harder to get in the air than it does to stay in the air, right? And I'll be honest with you, I worked so much harder between zero and a $500,000 in revenue than I did from a 500,000 to 1 million because I had a lot of the processes, I had some of the people, I had the knowledge, I had the belief because I had already kind of been doing it. And all of that will help propel you and make it feel easier than day one when you're trying to find your first deal and you don't know what you're doing. That is so hard, but it can be made easier if you find someone who's already done their first deal. They don't have to do 100 deals a year. When you've not done anything, find the person who's done a deal or two and ask them for help, right? Chances are they don't run a course. They're not charging you $1,000, right? They're just like, I don't know. I guess this is what I did. Matter of fact, when I started wholesaling, I said I went from flipping to wholesaling. I went to the guy in my local, and if he's listening to this, I apologize. But I went to the guy in my local community who was the wholesaler that I knew of, and I said, I want to start doing wholesaling. I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm not even sure if I understand what it means. Like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
He had to like tell me how like you sign a contract and then you find a buyer and you sign an assignment contract. All that I didn't know any of that. And I'm like, well, how do you find sellers? And he's like, well, I do postcards and this is how I do it. And he gave me just enough information to get my first deal. But then looking back, he was awful. Like he didn't know hardly anything. Most of what he was doing wasn't great, and he was not going to be someone that could have got me much farther than my first couple of deals. So,
Hmm.
can you hear dogs in the background?
Yeah, it's
I
fine.
apologize.
He's not that bad. It's okay.
Um,
Annette,
I know we're
control those
babies. We're,
dogs,
we're
honey.
dog sitting my daughter's dog, and that's the one you hear. Frustratingly enough, my dog knows when
It's
I'm
fine.
podcasting. You don't bark. Uh, so, anyways, I went to
Podcasting
this
light.
guy. I went to this guy, and he helped me. I am grateful for what he told me. But looking back in hindsight, he couldn't have
Mhm.
got me much farther because he wasn't very good at what he did. But so you just need to get to the next step. You don't have to find the greatest mentor, the most
Mhm.
successful mentor from day one. It's nice if you can, but you don't have to. You just have to get to the next step.
But actually, you might not even believe that person anyways. Like, you could have been, like, if you would have, like, you're skeptical of people. And if you would have found somebody that was doing 20 a month, like the first time you've ever did it, I think now, like, there is some stuff going on in our market that we really do know, like, hey, this is totally possible. But sometimes you don't even think that's possible because you're just like, that sounds really hard. So even finding somebody that close to you, like at one deal, is still more successful because then you can realize, well, if he can do it, I can do it. It's only one, it's only two. And he also introduced you to some things like direct mail. Like, that's a thing that, I mean, I've done a lot of direct mail. It was very successful. And it's because I learned from people like you. But I don't think people would have, I mean, people don't, if you don't know somebody and have seen their success maybe over a few months, you probably wouldn't even believe it. So it'd be like, you're sending a freaking postcard? Like, are you kidding me? Like, that sounds really annoying. But that's how people have huge businesses.
Yep.
So I think in the end, like, even finding the person that is just one step ahead of you is really nice because, like, right now, if I wanted to go and flip a house and I'd never flipped one, and then I came and hung out with someone like you or someone like Jimmy or Justin or one of the guys from the group that are flipping 40 a month or 30 a month, I'd be like, that's not possible. Are you freaking kidding? Like, how is that? Like, because now it's just a daunting task, you know?
Yeah, totally. I totally agree. It's just, it's maybe not even a matter of believing them. It's just can't relate, right? It's just too far, too
Yeah,
much. The
yeah.
bridge is just too far. Yeah, totally. So it worked out well. And I think you originally asked me how I was comfortable writing that check. I was doing it. First of all, what I did do really, really well too, and this is another mistake I think people make where this isn't really about scale, by the way. Not everybody needs 100 deals a year. I get that. But if your
Hmm.
goal is to scale, um, I reinvested my profits like a maniac. So
Hmm.
I saw the $25,000 as an investment personally. I knew that and this is like a real cliche thing to say, especially when you're like a coach. A lot of coaches will use this mindset, and it's sort of gotten a little bit of a negative connotation. But I did believe at the time, if I gave this group $25,000, would I do at least two more deals this year? Just two, because my deals were about $10,000 to $12,000 profits each one. So all I
Hmm.
have to do is it has to be
Make it
responsible
back.
for getting me two more deals, and it will pay for itself. And then that education will be in my brain forever. I don't have to keep doing that necessarily. So
That's
that's
so
what I did,
good.
and we went from about it. So I'm from the manufacturing world, and I use the word run rate a lot. I don't know if that's a common term for everybody, but so I was on pace. It's the same thing as saying on pace. I was on pace to do about $200 to $250,000 over the next 12 months when I joined the group. Like that was my
Mhm.
run rate or pace. We ended up doing 1 million, right? And so
Yes.
I
Is
know
that
I not only made
quadrupled?
my 25 back, but I basically quadrupled 400x what I was going to do, or 400%, I should say, what I was going to
Yeah.
do. Right. So was it worth it? Yeah, it was totally worth it. And I was on a podcast, maybe 2 years after I had joined the group and we had gotten to $1 million. And I mentioned how much I paid for the group. And they said, well, the host of this podcast said, that's a lot of money. Like, how much money
Did you
would you
not just
spend?
hear how much I
Yeah,
made?
I know. And I'm like, well, if you told me if I gave you $1, you'd give me $4, I would empty my bank account. I would liquidate all my assets. I would give you everything if you would 4x it and it was guaranteed. You know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
there's no limit to what I will spend. And it goes for marketing and my business too. When I was scaling, if I had a marketing channel that would return 4 or 5x of my marketing spend, how much
Yeah.
is my marketing budget? It's infinite. It's whatever I can
Yeah.
scrape together because there's no downside there. So that's what we did. We reinvested so much of our profits, almost all of it, into marketing, which just continued to fuel the success. And then I got, there's some luck in everything. I'm not one of those people that are adamant that everything that happens to you is a result of strategic planning and hard work. It's some of it's luck. And so I had some hires that were really, really good for me, and they were able to help me propel my business even farther. And if you can't tell, in the first, once I joined Seven Figure Flipping, for the next 5 years, I was obsessed with scale. Like I just wanted to scale. And then COVID happened, honestly, and it really was a good lesson. COVID, a lot of bad things happened in COVID, but the silver lining for my business was we scaled back. We had to reduce our headcount, a fancy way of saying firing people, but we just weren't getting the amount of deals and we were getting, but
Mhm.
it forced us to be leaner. And in 2020, we had our best net profit year ever because we went back to basics. We didn't spend wastefully. We reduced the headcount, and we did less deals and we made less money, but we had more profit, right? And at the end of the day, what does everybody say, right? Like, I don't care how much money you made, like how much did you keep? Like how much did you
Yeah.
actually have at the end of the year? Well, we had more at the
Mhm.
end of the year than any year so far. So that was a good thing.
With less work, probably like less. I mean, less driving, I guess, towards
Yeah, and it was the
something.
first time we weren't focused on volume. We were focused on profits, and it made a huge difference. And it was a good lesson for us going forward because, for the next 3 years, we didn't even say the word grow or scale. We just didn't care because we were
Well,
doing so
yeah,
well.
who cares if you do 150 deals or 150 doors of, wholesaling, flipping, all the things, if you only made X dollars, but this person that only did 50 deals made like 3 times more than you? Like I would
Yeah,
pick the 3 times more.
100%. There's just no upside to doing high volume, low profit. It's so thin,
It's such a churn.
the
Such a
margin of
churn.
error is so thin. It's terrible. It's stressful.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I like that. I like the perspective of like seeing that. Like, I assume when I join something, I should be able to double whatever I if I pay $1,000 for a group, I am in some $1,000 groups. I'm like, this is so great. It's only $1,000, yay!
Yeah.
Because, but I would assume that there's going to be some tidbit out of that group that I should be able to make $2,000 from. I should be able to up my prices in my short-term rentals. I should be able to save money here, or get some kind of tip. So I feel like when I'm investing, I'm making an assumption, and you said it very beautifully. Like you're just like, you have to put the effort in, though. Like all of the whole formula is going to be in front of you, the playbook, whatever you want to call it, but you have to implement it. You actually have to like do the things, and then there's no top for you if you want to go.
Yeah, I think I still say, I've said this since I read the book Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink, should be required reading for people, because to me
Yeah.
the central theme there is everything is on you. Everything is your fault if it doesn't work. You can't blame everybody else, right? And especially if you're in a group, because I know I've seen this, unfortunately, that people pay a lot of money to be in a group, and their attitude is kind of like, go ahead, make my business great. I paid you to make it great. It's like,
Nope.
you paid for
Yeah.
access to information,
Get a
really, and
refund and
access
go
to
away.
people, and access to a group of people who will support you, but you have to do the work. And I've literally
Mhm.
seen people like blatantly go, I paid you to make this grow,
Yeah,
make it
they're
grow.
already
And it's like,
skeptics, but why did you
yeah,
even put the money there? Like, if you're already
yeah, it's
skeptical,
like,
weirdly, you're going to create your reality. You're weirdly going to fail, or like whatever you decided. If you're like, this group isn't going to work, it's not going to work because you already decided it's not going to work.
or if you expect someone else to put in the work for you, right? It's still your
Yeah.
business. Like, I've just, I was listening to something today where somebody was saying hard work is a myth. And what their point was, the people who work the hardest in our society aren't necessarily the most financially successful, right? People who do roofing jobs, they work hard, but they're not necessarily making a lot of money unless they own the company. But there is a component of work smart, listen to smart people, put yourself in rooms of people who have, higher aspirations in life, but then also be willing to work, right? It's just laziness is almost never rewarded unless
Hmm.
you were too lazy to buy a plane ticket to go somewhere and the plane crashes. That got rewarded, right? Like, but in general, laziness is never rewarded, right? And so you can't be lazy. But I know, and the reason I mentioned the hard work thing is I know a lot of people that are legitimately working night and day on their business. They're just not doing the right things.
Hmm.
They're rowing really hard, but in the wrong direction. And so
Yeah.
it's a combination of listening to smart people who can help you, being humble enough to be able to be coached. That's another skill that a lot of people don't have. There are a lot of
Mhm.
like, yeah, but, or I already know that. You ever talk? I'm sure you've done this, Tanya. You've talked to somebody
Oh God, I've done
and they
this to
go,
you.
oh yeah, oh yeah, oh
Like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And it's
but
like no matter what you say, they're saying yeah, I know before you even finish your thought. And it's like they'll never get anywhere because they're like a full glass. You can't put anything into a full glass. And so hard work, coachable, and getting good information. Those are the three keys. If you have and do those things, you cannot fail. You can't fail. Not long term. Doesn't mean you can't not succeed the first time, of course. But if you stick at
Mhm.
it, if you stick with it, you can't fail with those three things.
Yeah, I agree. And I think being humble enough to be coached is a big one. Like, this is already a lesson to me. Of course, Mike would just come on my podcast, fucking coach me, whether he wanted to or not, or knew he was doing it. I'm over here like, yeah, yeah, but but it's a really good lesson. It's true that you're joining these people, and the reason that you want to spend time around people like this is to get better. Like, yeah, there's friendships and stuff, but the underlining thing, the whole reason you joined or to hang out with people like that is to get other people's opinions so you can, or the way they did it, and copy their playbook. So makes
The
sense.
reason why a paid group like Seven Figure Flipping or any other group that's great that you have where there's a barrier to entry, forget the pay part, just some barrier to entry. Usually that's money. But the
Mhm.
reason why those groups serve you at a higher level is because I've gone to local RIAs. Most of us have if you're in real estate.
Mhm.
And when you go there, the majority of the people are just talking, they're not doing anything, right? And so
Mhm.
what's great about a higher level group that you have to pay for to get access is not only are their expectations of themselves high, they also assume your expectations are high, and there's a component of accountability. Even if it's just organic and just it's usually it's a byproduct. Now, Seven Figure has like accountability groups that are very structured, but even just being in the
Mhm.
group, right? Like if I'm sitting around, I do this still. I'm friends with Terry Berger. We're both friends. I talk to Terry time to time, and I'll go, "Oh, I think I'm gonna do this thing. Like I'm researching it, but I think I'm gonna pull the trigger and do this thing." There's no chance next time I talk to Terry that he's not going to say, "How did that go when you did that?" Because you said you're, and he doesn't say it like this, but he's essentially saying, when you said you're going to do it, so I assume you did.
Mhm.
How did that go? And it's very uncomfortable to say, "Oh, yeah, I never ended up doing it." Right. And so with high achieving people, they kind of graft their high achieving expectations on you just by accident, right? It's just the way it
Mhm.
works. They assume that you also are serious when you say you're going to do something. So these high and you don't get that with RIAs because a lot of the people in those RIAs desperately don't want to be checked on the things they said they're going to do because they know they're not really going to do it, right? And so that's
Yeah.
why those groups are fine, but they're not a long-term solution a lot of times because you just don't get the same expectations from those groups as you do from a higher level group.
Yeah, well, and then I mean, meeting monthly is fine. Like, I mean, in some figure, we meet in person, or we did meet in person, quarterly, but then we were on calls potentially up to once a week. And then in addition to that, there's text messages going around and little mini groups and accountability groups and stuff. And I think
Yep.
it's a good point. Like, you're right when you say accountability is a byproduct, because if you're starting to hang out with people that are doing those kinds of things, they want to check in on you, they want to celebrate with you, they want to, help out. But then in addition to that, they're just watching. Like, they're also just becoming friends with you. So you just said that, and I thought of the same thing, that when I check in with Terry, he's going to ask the things he knows that I'm working on, was working on, talking about, because we're friends. Because he's like, he knows that I do short-term rentals, and I know that he's working on, or that he has this big huge house that's got a pickleball court, and like he's going all in on pickleball. So now I can call him and be like, "Hey, how's that going?" So you're right. Like, in a way, it's like it's literally a byproduct, or I mean, friendship can even be the byproduct of, or like, now you have this accountability, because that's what I use social media for. I tell people I'm doing something because then they're going to ask me. So and I never know who's going to ask me about it. It could be some random person that I used to work with 5 years ago, but
Yep.
somebody's going to ask me, and that is enough fire for me to actually go through with what I need to do.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Totally. And that's a huge part of it. It really is. That's a huge part of it. And you just don't get that on your own. Like there's so many things you can't, benefits of a community or a tribe that you just can't get on your own. And an introvert like me tries to tell themselves they can, but I've
Mhm.
just done it. I've seen it too many times. I know I can't, not at the same level. I can't even ask myself questions that would help raise my game, because if I'm not already doing it, I don't know those. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you
Yeah.
need outside people to look at you and your scenario and ask questions that will be breakthroughs for you. You don't know what you don't know.
No, honestly, we don't, because I totally rely on people for stuff like that, because I can coach people. I listen intensely when somebody tells me things, and I pick up all the things that they aren't picking up, because that's what I'm good at. And I need somebody to totally reflect that back on me, because I'm just over here like, nope, I'm gonna whine about this thing today. But if somebody who hangs out with me maybe weekly hears what I'm whining about, they can call me out on whining about that thing that I'm just like, oh yeah, I should really quit being a fucking baby and just go do that damn thing that I keep talking about. And that's why I surround myself. I still talk to people from seven figure very regularly. And there's a couple that I'm just like, can you just tell me what I'm being such a baby about? That would be really helpful right now, because I'm so over, like, I'm sick of listening to myself kind of person. So
Well,
yeah.
that's the thing too. Like you mentioned it, and I mentioned it briefly, but I do think that there's a pattern. There is a common denominator. Again, not black and white, but I think people who fall into a couple categories, and I'll tell you what my categories are. I guess there's probably more than one or two, but so my dad was a Marine, Vietnam era Marine, and so there was discipline in my family for sure. But when I tell you you were humbled, believe me, you were humbled. So I wasn't raised to be cocky or self-important or think that I have all the answers and I'm great. Matter of fact, I was told explicitly very often that I did not have all
Wasn't
the
any of
answers.
those things.
Perhaps I was an idiot. So, I mean, it wasn't all good, but I mean, there was an element there in all seriousness of like, I learned to listen and I learned to respect someone who was, in a position of authority, or to be able to be coached. But that's one aspect, right? So it kind of like broke down my self esteem. Low self esteem is underrated, by the way. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's not the worst thing in the world, Tanya. People
I
with
do
low
not
self
think of
esteem are
you as a person
always.
that has low self-esteem.
I mean, I don't
You broke
now,
through that.
certainly about things that I'm comfortable with, but I mean, I was raised with low self esteem for sure.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, and this is like, again, some people I'm sure will argue this, but I don't really care to be controversial either. I think people who played some sports in their life, in organized sport, it's not required to be successful. Okay. I'm not saying that, but there is a level of skill that you get. And in my case, I played a lot of sports, but one of them was football. So standing in the freezing cold, being yelled at by an overweight man in a parka with a whistle around his neck, and having to listen to him, it taught me how to be coached, right? Like I was coachable from day one because I had a tough dad. I played baseball, I ran track, I played football, I did martial arts. Like I was coachable, if nothing else. If I believed you knew what you were talking about, I would do exactly what you said, and I would do it with extreme like intensity. And so when I joined the group, it was perfect because I believed that Andy knew what he was talking about without a doubt. When he said jump, I was already in the air. Like I just did whatever he said. And I didn't question anything he told me or try to second guess him, or I'm going to do it my way because I kind of know my own community. I know my own town. Nope. I did exactly what he said. Even if it was counterintuitive, I did it. And that's a huge superpower. Seriously. If you are coachable and you are like seriously coachable, not like word lip service, I'm coachable because it sounds good, but like
Mhm.
literally, if you're able to be coached, And I think sometimes organized sports, especially a sport where you have to sometimes sacrifice for the better of the team kind of thing. Like if you can be coached like that, my gosh, it's hard to lose.
Oh my goodness, this is good because it's true. Like I've seen people do it. Like you just here's the playbook, just do the thing.
But
And
have you not, since you coach people, have you not tried to tell somebody something that you knew was objectively true, or you were 95% sure it was going to work, right? Nothing's 100%. And they were like, yeah, I don't know. Like I tried that once, and I don't, in my town, it's different. It's just, it doesn't work that way. I was like, they're
yes.
not coachable. They're not coachable. They have to be the smartest person in the room, or they're not happy. And so if they're the smartest person, you're not as smart as them, and so they're never going to listen. As soon as I start talking and someone goes, yeah, it's always yeah, but first of all, but it's yeah, but, or like I don't know. I lose momentum with helping them fast.
Like really
I will
fast.
still
Yeah,
be
yeah.
polite. I will finish the conversation, but I will never go back and ask them anything about it because I know they're not going to do it. They're not going to listen to me. I just can see it a mile away now. And
Yeah.
you know too, right? Like the best thing in the world, the best feeling in the world when you're coaching someone, mentoring them, or just informally giving them advice, right? The best feeling in the world is when they come back to you a week later, a month later, and
Yes.
go, hey, I did that thing and it was awesome. It worked. That is the greatest feeling in the world. But when you talk to
Mhm.
them and you go, hey, did you do that thing? And they go, nah, I didn't think that would work for me. So I did something. It's like, okay, don't ask
You're
me
dead to
anymore.
me.
'Cause,
You're
you
dead
just
to me.
wasted my time. Like, stop asking me questions then.
Yeah, no, this is totally true. I've never really thought of like the being like when somebody says yeah, but I've never actually thought of it being not coachable. So this is a completely different perspective that I appreciate because now I'm gonna think about how I fucking
Don't say yeah,
rebuttal
but
people.
anywhere.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm like, but what if? Or what about this? But I like to like clear up questions and then I'm like, okay, that's I just want it to make sense in my mind, but it's really interesting to listen to this kind of perspective of people doing that. And you're totally right. When somebody comes back and they're like, "Woo, this is the reason," like because they're celebrating because they obviously did the thing and it worked. And sometimes you tell people and they don't believe you. They're just like, "No, that can't happen. Like I raise money. That's not going to happen. Like I don't know anybody." I'm like, "Okay, cool. You decided that. That's totally reality for you. You
You
already
can just
created
see
it. Like I don't care."
the
Hmm.
mindset's not going to work. I mean, asking
Hmm.
clarifying questions, there's nothing wrong with that, right? But the yeah buts are different. Yeah, but is an objection to what you're being told is valuable or works,
Hmm.
right? Yeah, but is a whole different world. Clarifying questions are fine, but if I'm talking to somebody, and you've probably had this too, I might have done it to you. They'll tell you something, and you go, okay, what if though? And they go, just do it, it'll work. And you go, well, I know, but what I'm saying is, they go, it'll work. If you do that more than twice, you are just a bad mindset person. Like if the person you are going to for advice is just like, just trust me, trust me, this is going to work. Like, just trust me, it's the
Yeah.
right thing. Well, I don't
Uh-huh.
know, just trust me. If you make them say just trust me more than twice,
Hmm.
you're a knucklehead. Like, just stop. When you see that kind of confidence coming from someone that you are paying to help you, or you believe can help you, and they have
Yeah.
that level of confidence, just
Mhm.
do it. Stop talking, just do it.
I think that's probably one of the things that's probably harder for me is like you see proof. Like again, we'll just keep using Andy because he's the easiest example
He's the
for anybody
greatest.
that doesn't know. His name is Andy McFarland. He's incredible. But you had proof. I think it's when you meet somebody and you're like, I don't know you well enough. You haven't
Yeah,
showed me your books. It's very rare you can see
sure.
somebody's books.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
if I haven't known somebody long enough and they're telling me that, I'm like, I don't know you. Because I've realized now, as long as I've been in real estate, is that everybody says certain things. And then you
Yeah,
find out behind the doors that you're like, you haven't even done a deal and you're giving me advice
I
on
know.
this. Like, what are you talking about?
Oh,
You never even closed a deal. So that's the reason that I
yeah.
think sometimes people get into that. It's
100%.
like you got to find some kind of proof. But that's
Yep.
why I'm all about like you got to know, like, and trust somebody.
Yeah.
You got to
If
find them.
you if you are at the point though where you've shelled out a lot of money for their opinion
Hmm.
and their advice, then just
Yep.
quit, stop not taking it. But you're right. There's like the danger, the problem is there's plenty of people who have never done a deal who will tell you exactly how to build and grow a successful business. They have
Yeah.
no problem. They don't even feel ashamed to do it. They feel like they can do that, right? So you have to
Mhm.
be so careful. It is a needle in a haystack finding a
It's
really,
tough.
really great business person who's willing to give you really, really good advice. It just doesn't come, it's not as common as you'd think surfing the internet because
Yeah.
you go on Instagram or Facebook, no one goes on Facebook, but if you go on Facebook or Instagram or any of these platforms, you will not find a shortage of people trying to advise you on how to succeed. And most of them, I would say, are probably full of it, right? So it
Yeah.
is it is a
Well,
problem.
okay, so talking about Justin, he's the guy, the fast fail forward, something like that. Fail forward fast. I don't know.
Fail fast,
Um,
fail forward fast. Yeah, fail forward fast.
yeah, fucking, that's too many F's. I'm really happy he just
Yeah,
changed it to
it was a
seven figures.
bad
But
name, but yeah.
so if somebody, we need to give somebody advice. Like, I know how I go and find a mastermind. I know that you've joined other masterminds. I'm certain of it. How does somebody do that? Like, how do they underwrite a mastermind? Like, I know, I remember how I figured out seven figure. Like, I grilled the shit out of Bill. I like
Yeah.
got on the phone with somebody that was becoming the CEO of the company and I grilled him about it. And I asked questions. I asked for references. Like, I talked to Arian Lemire. I talked to somebody else.
Yeah.
I asked real questions. I'm like, I want to talk to real normal people that have really done this. So
I think that's
how do you say, how does that
yeah.
happen?
I mean, do that. That's a good approach for sure. I think if they offer training that's free or an event that's reasonably priced in seven figures case, we have done traditionally the flip hacking live event, right? It's a couple $100,
Mhm.
but you get to be immersed in that, not just for the people who are running it, but the people who are in it. You kind of get to mingle and network in that environment, and you get to see the people running the company up on stage talking. That goes a long way. And by the way, you're there with a lot of the members, so that's your chance to like ask questions. And by the way, I don't know how
Mhm.
you got a hold of Chris and Ariane, or if Bill gave you their information.
He
Okay,
did. Yeah,
which
he
which
connected
is
me with
fine,
Arian.
which is totally fine. But if you
Mhm.
walk around an event where there's 100 people from their community, you're not getting anybody for sure that's cherry picked. Not that Chris and Ariane were cherry picked, but you can ask
Mhm.
people. You're going to get, people love. Here's what I've learned too. Just being in the world with Google reviews and all the people love to tell you bad stuff. People aren't usually as motivated to say all the good things that you go look at something on Amazon and a lot of people love talking about how terrible it was, but sometimes
Mhm.
it's harder to get the good reviews. So, anyways, talking to people in the group, going to an event or logging on to a Zoom event or whatever. Most groups like that offer something. They offer free training on a regular basis, and just so you
Mhm.
know, it's specifically designed to get you into their world so they can market to you and then get you in the main group. I don't think that's a secret. I think that's pretty well known.
Yeah.
But go to those free things or those real expensive things to get a sense of what they're telling people and sort of what they're about. Because there's a lot of bad ones. And unfortunately, there's a lot of bad ones that are kind of big. Like there's big masterminds that are kind of crap. But if you just looked at the amount of people in it, you'd go, well, they must be good because there's 100 or 200 or 300. They're not always
Yeah.
good. So here's the thing. I got lucky because I didn't join a lot of these groups before I found seven figure. So like I said, there is some luck involved with success. I was lucky enough to meet Justin, who ran the group, and to get in because I knew he was legit, so I didn't have to vet anything. You may join a group that you have to leave because it's not what you thought it was.
Yep.
So don't feel like you have to make the right decision or your world's going to end. Most groups, even crappy ones, have some value. There's something in the group or somebody in the group or something you will learn that's worthwhile. It's not 100% crap. It's just you need it to be 90% good and not 10% good and 90% crap, right? Like you need it to be
Yeah.
more good than crap. And in any group, by the way, even a group like Seven Figure, it's not for everybody. It doesn't fit everyone's personality. And so if you get
Mhm.
in and you just don't resonate with the people, leave. It's fine. You may find a group that just works better with your personality type, but you gotta, the bottom line is this, like, I used to go to this meetup that was $149. I told you I'd go once a month. Every single month, I would tell my wife, Nanette, I don't want to go. And Frank, she didn't want to go either, by the way. She's an introvert too. We would both go, I don't want to go this week. I don't feel like it. At the time, I was working a full-time job, and I was like, I don't want to go. But my wife is very frugal. We spent money. It doesn't matter if it's $5, $149, or $25,000. It was money. We're not going to waste money. So she'd go, we're going to go. We pay for this thing. We're going to go. And I'd go, okay, I'll go. Every single time I did that, I would leave going, oh my gosh, I'm so glad we went because we got this little epiphany or this person we talked to or whatever. And I was like, I am so glad. And that had to happen a dozen times probably before I was like, hey, knucklehead, just go, because good things happen when you show up. And so, you know, probably the lesser part of success, or the part that maybe people overlook, is just showing up. Just showing up, right? Like we mentioned some other stuff that's super important, coachable and being around high achievers and people with high goals, but just showing up is part of it. Because I know people have joined the seven-figure flipping group and never show up to anything. They don't get on the Facebook group. They don't go to the events. They don't network. They don't do anything. They just don't do anything. And man, my wife would not be married to any of those people, because that would be a problem. But you have to show up, man. You just show up, and good things happen just by being in the mix, like just being there. So
yeah, just being in front of people. I completely agree. I tell people too, I'm just like, it's cool to go to events and learn stuff, and I have like, these are the sessions I want to go to, but just showing up and listening to other people's conversations, sitting with somebody at lunch and just listen, like, or ask, those are the things that, like, the stuff that, I mean, some of the things that I've learned that have literally changed what I've done in my business have been random flip it comments that I was like, wait a minute, what did you just say? Somebody told me about like how I needed to double my pricing because there was some certain things that they heard me say that they're like, oh yeah, your price too low. And I didn't know. And then I doubled and tripled like what I would like in my short-term rental business. I doubled my price, and now I'm probably at least triple. And all because of somebody just made a random comment. And that's the reason that you have to have space to even do that. Like you have to go to a space and then have space in your head and not overachieve. And I need to listen to this person talking on stage. No, go out in the hallway and talk to a couple people. You just people have changed my life like that.
Yeah, totally. Where I go, wait, what did you just say? Like, wait, what? And it's like, and by the way, it's not always the people who are like have the biggest, most impressive business. Sometimes it's somebody who's sort of like on that journey to where they want to be, and they just casually mention at a lunch something, double your prices or whatever. And you go, wait, hold on, wait, what? And they're so caught off guard usually because they take it for granted what they know. But it's like common knowledge is only common if you have it, right? If you don't have it, it's not common. So I do the same thing all the time, where I just I'll listen to a casual conversation. Yeah, sometimes it is the quiet one. By the way,
it's the quiet ones in the back of the room. Like those, honestly, like those are the people you should be targeting, especially if they have a wind jacket on and like lame shoes in the back. Those people are probably millionaires. Like I remember the first time I ever met Justin Gentry that was in the group, and I was like, who the hell is this guy? He's got a Southern twang, and I am from the Midwest, and I totally am a jerk. And I kind of just, at that point in time, I judged a Southern twang that I'm like, what the hell is that guy know? He speaks with a drawl. And then all of a sudden you hear the shit that he's doing and has done and how long he's been doing it. And you're like, what? I want to listen to this person. But he's a guy that you would never, he would never pick to be on stage. He does not like to be in any limelight. But you start talking to him and you're like, holy shit, I want to learn from you, man.
He is a stone cold killer, that guy. He is so good. And I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. If you just observe and listen without hearing, without listening to what he's saying, just listen to his drawl and just observe, like you would write him off. I mean, it's not nice, but it's human nature, right? But you're right. He is the guy you want to listen to. And by the way, it's like the sweetest guy. Like he's also in the back because he's signing to his wife who is deaf, and he wants her to be able to hear. Like he's sign languaging to her as he's quietly one of the most badass in the room.
An entire event, 3 days, and he'll be signing the whole time.
Yeah, he is just like the sweetest guy with tons of knowledge and just great. But anyways,
but it's somebody in the back of the room. I know, right? I'm gonna have to tell him to listen. But it's just about those people in the back of the room, or the people that aren't talking to anybody. Like those are the ones you want to target. Like I know a couple of them that I've targeted that I'm just like, hey, and then you find out they have hundreds of properties, or they've been doing real estate since like 1998. Do
Yeah.
you think you can learn something from somebody who's been doing real estate since 1998?
And by the way, as an introvert who typically would sit in the back of the room if I wasn't involved in the group, you make them so
Mhm.
uncomfortable when you come up and start talking to them. But you're right. A
I
lot of
do.
times that's where the good
Yeah.
information is. But
Uh-huh.
you're
Yeah.
taking them out of their comfort zone for sure. Just a little
Oh, I've
public service
accidentally
announcement.
made Corey go back to his hotel room because he was so scared to talk to another human. And
Corey
Corey
Lawson?
Lehman. No,
Oh,
Corey
Lehman. Okay.
Lehman. Do you remember
Lehman.
him?
Okay.
Like South Dakota. And he's from South Dakota. Like there's not very
That's
many people
funny.
there, so he's
No.
shy.
Yeah. He used
But
to be
they
alone.
like introverting is a real thing. And if you are an
Hmm.
extrovert, go find some introverts and just bring them with you. Like I do that
And
to
be
people all the time.
gentle.
I'm like,
Be
here, come
gentle.
here.
They're super uncomfortable the whole time, so give them a bit of a break. That's all. That's my little
Uh,
PSA for the introverts.
I think it's so funny because I know you so well that I'm just like, you're not an introvert. And then I'm like, no, he probably is.
Well,
He's a
I
nerd
am.
in the
That's a
back.
group that I'm comfortable with the group. I'm comfortable with the subject matter. Like I feel pretty good about it, right? But if you take me to some conference of something that I don't know a lot about, I am not outgoing at all. I should be. I wish I
I was
was.
gonna say.
Introverts secretly admire extroverts. And in my experience, extroverts tend to underplay how much of an extrovert they are. My wife has a friend who's total extrovert, like could not be more of an extrovert, and he swears to her he's an introvert too. Like, oh, I am too, but he doesn't understand the definition. Like, he doesn't understand a true introvert
Get this encyclopedia.
definitely wants to shy away from people. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. When somebody like needs a week to, reboot after being with people for 3 days. Yeah, that to me, I'm just like, oh my God, are you kidding? I just got back from an event and I'm like, I'm filled up for at least 3 more months. I'm so jittery.
Oh,
Yes.
I'm so
Yeah, because I
exhausted.
saw so many
Yeah.
people. Yeah, I know. That's the
Oh,
way you are.
yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna wrap this up with just a couple, like two more questions.
Okay.
Um, where is somewhere that you've met like a friend, advisor, like some kind of mentor really, really randomly? Like you would never have expected, oh God, now I have this friend.
I told you I'm very targeted with where I go. I don't go a lot of places. I think it was random for me. It wasn't a real estate group. I will say that, but he wasn't an investor. He didn't buy and sell real estate. He lent money to people, and I didn't have any interest in that at first because, frankly, I didn't understand how powerful private lending was. But I was just like my first deal I used a mortgage. Like I didn't really care about that, and so I didn't give him a lot of attention because I didn't feel like it was something I don't know. He just didn't, and he was an introvert too, by the way. But he would bring his wife, and I brought my wife. I didn't bring her; she came with me. We were partners, but we both went. And so most people were just a bunch of guys, most of them, and some women, but most single people are coming without their spouse. And so we started talking because he was with his wife, and just got to be friendly. And I think he only lent me money once ever, but we have dinners a couple times a year just to catch up. And he's one of those guys that he's quiet, but he's like the guy you were talking about. He's not like dynamic, a speaker, but he's real smart and really logical. And I admire that in people. I like people who don't feel like they have to tell you everything they know because they're so smart. Like he waits, but if you ask him, everything he says is pretty smart. So we have dinner a couple times a year. He asks me what I'm up to. I ask for advice. So he is kind of a mentor of mine. I think he would consider us to just be friends, just equal friends. But I do kind of look at him as a mentor. He's a smart guy.
Oh, that's awesome. And you met him at a random real estate event, but
Yep.
actually talked to him. So you made a friendship.
Yeah, I actually talked. Well, yeah, my wife was there too, but yeah, I did talk
It
to
was
him.
probably Nanette that made you guys
If
even
I'm being
friends.
honest, I think his wife talked to us. Like I think his wife is an extrovert, so she started the whole thing. But then, yeah, we all kind of got to know each other.
I love that. Oh, it's so fun. Okay, and then last thing is, what's the best advice someone has given you that you've actually used? I feel like you
So
probably have a
much.
ton
This
of
is like
stuff because
asking me
you
my.
do so much. I know you actually do things people tell you to do.
I know. Here's the thing. This is like, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, in the world, some of the best advice is super common, and so people write it off because they want to hear the advice they've never heard before, and that's not
Mhm.
real life. There's a reason why certain advice is common, and the advice that I like, if I was trying to really help one of my kids or a family member that I really cared about their success, probably the thing, and I actually did do this, but one of the things the first thing I'd probably tell them, and this is not the sexiest advice, Tanya, so don't get ready to write anything down, is you have to take massive action if you want anything to work. And here's why. I told you about the whole goose bat analogy. I believe that. And I'll give you a little example. I'm going to have to trash somebody in my family a little bit, but I'll do it for the sake of your audience and to give you an anecdote that will stick. Okay. So my brother started flipping houses a few years ago. I think it was probably 3 years ago now, maybe 4. And he took me out to dinner and he's like, I need your help. I need your advice. I want to start flipping houses. I know you've done this. You've done it at a high level. You coach people. Like, can you just spend an evening with me and give me some advice and tell me what I should do? And I told him a lot, but one of the things I emphasized to him, I said, when you buy this house, okay, when you close on it and you own it, from that moment forward, you had better act like you are months behind on the renovation and thousands of dollars over budget from day one, even though you're not. Because if you don't, you will be months over time and you will be thousands of dollars over budget. I promise you. And it's not that that's a rule for everybody at all times, but when you're new, when you're just starting out, you will run over time-wise and you will be way over budget. And if you don't act like that, like act with urgency, like hair on fire, almost panicked when you wake up that you need to get stuff done or it's going to end up that way. Okay. That was, but it doesn't matter what month he bought it, but he bought that house. 2 years later, the renovation wasn't done. By the way, this was a 60-day renovation, maybe, if you took your time.
Pretty
2
easy
years
flip.
later, he wasn't done. The market had shifted. And on a deal where I evaluated, I underwrote it. And not before he bought it, but after he bought it, I'm like, I want to see what you got going on here. I underwrote it. He had conservatively a 6-figure profit deal. Like conservatively, he was going to make $100,000 on that deal had he just done reasonably well. He ended up bringing $30,000 to closing, and he was 2.5 years under renovation.
It hurts my heart.
Now
that is an
extreme example, but I'm telling you guys, if you're out there, I don't care if you're buying short-term rentals and fixing them up and getting all your tech stack going or whatever you're going to do, or you're flipping or whatever it is. It's the same syndrome when someone says in January for their New Year's resolution, I'm going to lose 20 pounds. There's no motivation in January and February and March. Even in April, May, and June, they don't start feeling the pressure until maybe September, October, and then it's like, oh crap, I've actually gained 5 pounds. Now I have to lose 25 pounds. And it's like, you make an impossible scenario for yourself. If you don't act like you would if you were late and over budget, you will be late and over budget.
I'm writing that one down, Mike. It's so good. Just
all right. Well,
act like you're late and over budget. It's still, but actually, like this resonates with me because it's true. Anything I do it last minute, and you know how good I do because it's last minute. Like, you plan yourself 2 months, you're always going to be done at 2 months or over.
For sure. And I do the same thing. I fight with it all the time, right? I have a goal. If my goal is more than a couple of months out, I procrastinate for a month easily, right? And that's why I don't want to get necessarily into this. Maybe we don't have time, but that's why I think if you're going to create goals, don't create a year goal and call it a day because it's just so bad. You need to have at least 90-day goals or maybe even monthly goals, right? That kind of all add up to your yearly goal. I think that's pretty well documented nowadays. I think most people know that, but those year goals, anything out in the future too far is just, it's so not motivating, right? And here's another thing I'll say. It's just, it's too big to feel like if I don't do anything today, it doesn't matter. It's such a big goal. Like my little effort today is not going to make a difference. There's also something that I like to spew because I heard this a long time ago and I've like kind of taking it on as my saying, even though I didn't originate this thing, but it's called the law of diminishing intent. And the law basically says anything that you are excited to do today and motivated to do today, every day that goes by, you become less and less motivated to do it. And then you don't do it. right? It's the law of diminishing intent. Your intent is high day 1. Day 30, your intent is very low. You've run out of steam. You're not going to do it now. It doesn't sound as amazing anymore. So those two things, short-term goals combined with we know the law of diminishing intent now, means you've got to take action. You've got to take it fast. You've got to get the ball rolling so that you can. I think Mel Robbins talks about like the 5-second thing, like count to 5 and then just do the thing, whatever it is. It's the same
Yeah.
idea. Like, don't let yourself sit too long without having done anything toward your goals, because you're more likely to sit more and more and more, and then you don't do it. And then you feel bad about yourself. And now you've got bad self-esteem, which I said was underrated earlier, but it's not good all the time, right? You need some wins so that
It's
you
good
feel
for
like you
some.
can actually do it. Growing up with low self-esteem, maybe that's helpful sometimes, but anyway,
If you
I
can
don't
spin
recommend
out
it,
of it
but if it
later.
happened to you, then my point is, I guess,
Use it as
don't
fuel.
use it as fuel. Don't give your kids low self-esteem, but if you have low self-esteem because you were raised that way, realize that makes you want to please people and do things and
Do the
show that
thing.
you're good enough and all that. Like, use that as fuel. Like, that can be good, right? I'm fueled by anger. Some things that I've done in my business that were great and really, really successful, I did it because I was pissed off and it worked. So use what you got. Use whatever you got.
That doesn't surprise me in the slightest that you have achieved big things because you're pissy.
Dude, I've had things that I did in my business that I didn't even think I could do, but I was so infuriated by something that happened that I'm like, I'm doing it. I'm totally
Do
doing it.
this.
And yeah, and I did it. But I wouldn't have done it if everything would have been fine and nothing would have pissed me off.
Yeah, no, that's true. Like the complacency that we feel or that we eventually have because we're like, well, this is fine. I've been
Yep.
complacent. I'm just sick. I really did. I think I said it at some point, whether it was before our call or on this. I'm just like, I'm sick of listening to myself. Just like, that's going to be enough things. So I'm just like, I'm fucking sick of listening to you, Tanya. You should do this thing because I'm sick of listening to it. So
Yep.
whatever
Yep.
works for us, right?
That's right.
Awesome. Okay, if somebody wanted to hang out with you or reach out to you or get advice from you or, pay to be around you, what would they do?
I used to recommend Facebook. I don't do that anymore. Now I recommend that you go to, I'm just giving Tanya a hard time, guys, because I was going
I
to give you
told
my
them
Facebook
Facebook's
handle, but
dead.
I'm not doing it now because that's for old people. Go to my website. If you go to mikesimmons.com, all my handles are there for everything that I'm on. You can go there for sure. Yeah, and just go there. You can drop me a message there too if you want, but that's where you can find out what I'm up to.
Yeah, totally cool. I love that.
And also, I
And
will say, guys, if you're interested, like, there's a lot of places you can get educated for sure, and some of them are free, and some of them are really, really cheap, and some of them are not. By the way, we said 25,000 for 7-figure flipping. There are cheaper options within that group, but if you go to 7-figure flipping, the number 7 figureflipping.com, you can get involved, and there are free resources there too, right? So to my point, if you want to check somebody out, take advantage of their free stuff and see what you think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've talked about 7-figure on this podcast, man. I mean, at least monthly, if not more, because so many people from my network are from that group because that was where I learned about masterminds. That's where I learned about flipping. I, got a lot of real estate friends that have led me in the right direction and so many steps of the way over the past 7 years,
Yeah.
all because of that. So, if somebody's interested, I'm always a person that will cheerlead for that group because I don't want to flip anymore. But if you want to be around good flippers, that's a spot. And wholesaling, I don't know very
Well,
much about it, but
wholesalers,
I'm sure there's
flippers,
some good ones there
landlords,
too.
basically, those are the big three probably. But
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Mike, thank you very much for hanging with me. Always fucking lovely. And yeah, that's it.
all right, thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks. Bye, Travelers.